seated on stage at Slane Auditorium. And they each go to the center of the stage, one by one, and a narrator asks a question.
Well, that sounds terrible.
Yes, I agree. Justice Wilson, you are a Supreme Court Justice. You stood before many people in your lifetime. In fact, you were considered one of the most intelligent men around. Many of the main points of the Constitution were your ideas originally. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, but the idea and function of the Constitution were in part yours. How did you prepare yourself to stand in front of people like that? And what do you think a question about you, well, would be?
Well, my dear,
I do not understand why Wilson would be the subject of any question.
You heard the girl, Iredell. I inspired the composition of our Constitution. That is significant.
Agreed. But I continue in my contention that as far as the history of Edenton itself is concerned, you are remarkable only because it was here that you gave up the ghost, if you pardon the expression. And that is the question for you, Dory. What Supreme Court justice died and was buried at Hayes Plantation? That, and that alone, will be the only question asked of you regarding the remarkable Justice James Wilson.
Actually, sir, you were a Supreme Court Justice as well. And you were also buried at Hayes Plantation. That's not the remarkable thing about James Wilson when it comes to Edenton's history.
So, everyone is aware that he was attempting to hide from a legion of creditors from Philadelphia and other parts when he came here. Oh, Wilson, your dishonor has outlived you.
Iredell, sir, does our friendship mean nothing to you? Must you also contribute to my infamy?
Wilson, I neither contribute nor detract. I merely make a statement of fact. Do you deny that you felt it wise to visit our quiet village when you did so? To visit friends or some such?
But my debt was not a consequence of any corrupt act of my own, Iredell. That must count for something. Poor judgment was the sole reason for the circumstance that precipitated my final visit to Edenton. That, and a fondness for this place, and for its people.
My word. A Supreme Court judge who admits to poor judgment. Now there's a scandal. I do declare it.
Sir, please listen. The, well, financial problems you may have had are not what the people of Edenton remember most about. No, sir. It's the fact that the people of Philadelphia so esteemed you that they had you arranged to have you move back home. They felt you belonged there.
My people of Philadelphia? Well, bless them.
Yes, and it was cause for much celebration for the citizens of here and Philadelphia. Listen to this. This account was published in 1906, soon after it happened, by the Albany Law Review. It says, "No man, certainly no American citizen, more than a century after his death, had received such a spontaneous tribute of respect and veneration as paid James Wilson on the 3 days of last week, commencing with the disinterment of his remains at Edenton, North Carolina on November 20th, and closing with his reburial at Old Craig Christ Church, Philadelphia on November 22nd.
There you are, Wilson, a tribute. Grand homecoming. What more can you ask?
Is there more, Dory?
Actually, the account goes on. It says here that the governor of Pennsylvania himself signed a request that you be moved. That's something. And listen, immediately following the Edenton ceremonies, the remains covered by a 13 stars flag, presented by the Sons of the Revolution of Pennsylvania, escorted by Captain Fitchteller, the Pennsylvania Party and North Carolina officials, and representatives of the Society of the Cincinnati and Sons of the Revolution of North Carolina, were placed aboard a special train which was run direct to the dock at Norfolk.
A special train. You hear that, Iredell? A special train.
Yes, sir. And listen, blue jackets of the United States Navy carried the remains on board the USS Dubuque as the flag was half-masted, the bugle call sounded, and a Major General salute of 13 guns fired. The United States Marines attached to the man-of-war being drawn up in line and presenting arms. The remains were placed on the main deck, recovered by the Union Jack. They lay in state under guard of Marines until their arrival in Philadelphia. Sir, that's really something, I think. And when you arrived in Philadelphia, the ceremonies continued. The bell at Independence Hall tolling until your reburial at Christ Church. You laid in state in the Declaration Room of Independence Hall. Listen, where the remains lay in state by the city troop, at the scene of Wilson's greatest triumphs, in the sacred spot where he successfully battled for the Constitution, where he bore so valiant a part in the intellectual and victorious struggle of 1787 to make the American colonies a nation, and where he sat as the first great justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, breathing the breath of national life into the Constitution. Wow.
Why, I'm honored and gratified to think that I was held in such high esteem.
So, there you are, Wilson, old friend. Revered and venerated. A fitting end, Wilson. A fitting end.
It would seem so indeed, I know.
Seems so. Is so. I should be so honored.
Actually, sir, you're much honored, especially so in Edenton.
Really, my dear. Honored, you say?
Oh, yes. You were nominated for the Supreme Court by George Washington, our first president. That in itself would make people proud of one of their fellow citizens. You married Hannah Johnston, who was the sister of Samuel Johnston, the town's most prestigious individual at the time, and later a U.S. Senator and Governor of North Carolina. Even before the American Revolution, in your appointment to the Supreme Court, you wrote essays when you were very young, opposing the supremacy over America of the English Parliament. Your writings predated the Constitution, but set down many of the themes and ideas expressed in it. Not only that, but later as a Supreme Court justice, your opinion in a case established the principle of judicial review. See? You really made a difference, sir.
True, my dear. I believe that was Calder versus Bull, was it not? Yes. Dealt with natural justice and its position to our constitutional law. A very interesting and complex matter, my dear. In fact, I believe my decision stated in part the principles of natural justice are regulated by no fixed standard. The ablest and purest of men have differed on the subject. Yes, I remember that occasion.
My word. Iredell, you have committed all your decisions to memory?
No, sir, not all, but some seem to spring to mind unbidden.
Then please, dear Justice Iredell, favor us with a quote from the decision in Chisholm versus Georgia. That would certainly be worth the hearing.
Doubtless it would, my dear sir, but nothing occurs to me.
Ah, it is a convenient memory then. You remember only victories, only those decisions in which your opinion made a difference.
Hardly, sir.
Well, my memory today is very sharp, and I do remember Chisholm versus Georgia. In that case, Dory, Justice Iredell cast the sole dissenting vote. Is that not right, Iredell? 4 justices in the affirmative, and only Justice Iredell standing alone voting nay.
I'm sorry, Justice Wilson, but I don't remember that Georgia thing.
Dole, the Supreme Court heard the case in 1793. One of the issues of the case was whether or not a citizen of one of the United States, in this case South Carolina, could sue another state, in this case Georgia, for recovery. There was no precedent at the time to base an affirmative vote on. I could not, in all conscience, agree with the other justices in the matter.
Well, certainly precedence was one of the issues in the matter.
And 2 years later, in 1795, mostly because of the Chisholm versus Georgia decision, the 11th Amendment of the Constitution was ratified. This amendment removed federal jurisdiction in cases where a citizen of one state or a foreign country attempts to sue another state. Under the 11th Amendment, the state being sued must consent to be sued.
Oh, I remember something about that. We learned it in my state history class. We learned a lot about you in school.
It's good to be remembered, Dory, my dear, even if only for a moment.
More than a moment, sir. Your name, Iredell, is much honored here because of your son and namesake, who was governor of North Carolina. His house is now a monument to your family. It's open to the public as a museum.
Oh, good to know, Dory, my dear. Good to know.
Dory, at my, I suppose, reburial in Philadelphia, were there personages of prominence in attendance at that event?
Oh, absolutely. It says here, those attending were Governor Pennypacker for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Samuel Dixon Esquire for the Bar of Pennsylvania, Dean William Draper Lewis for the University of Pennsylvania, Attorney General of the United States, the Honorable William H. Moody. The list goes on, sir. And there are just as many from Edenton and dignitaries in North Carolina at that ceremony when you were put on the train.
How's the studying going, Dory? You left your dessert. Your mother asked me to bring it up to you. Did you want some milk? I didn't bring any.
Oh, no milk, Ray. Thanks for the cookies.
Well, very well. I'm going into my room. If you let me know if you need anything more from me. I'm going to be in my room watching Masterpiece.
Granny, just a second. There is something I've been wondering about.
Yes, dear?
Well, I've learned a lot about Edenton and its people, and all these historical figures seem to have one thing in common.
Yes.
Well, for instance, they're all white and wealthy. According to what I've read, there have always been African Americans in Edenton, even back in colonial days.
Yes, Dory, you're correct. But you must remember that most of them were slaves, and they didn't have the money or the education to make a big impact on history like people like Samuel Johnston did.
But they were the workers, weren't they? They were the people actually doing stuff while the rich, influential folks were making history.
Dory Roberts, forever the champion of the underdog. I really like that about you, dear. But you're absolutely correct. They were doing things, and some of them did them well enough to be remembered. Look through your books there and find the name Joe Welcome.
Joe Welcome.
Yes, he did a lot of good things. And there was the Badham family later on who built the Kadesh Amy Zion Church and the Masonic Lodge in the late 1800s. And Dory, you know who Harriet Jacobs is?
Of course. Incident in the Life of a Slave Girl. I read her book. She hid during the Civil War years and then escaped to freedom.
Absolutely correct. That's my girl. See, you know more than you think you do.
Dory, your grandmother was right. You know a lot. You know where to find things you don't know. That is an important part of learning.
Yes, I know, but I've got to find something. There's got to be something about them in here, even if it's just a footnote.
About whom?
Joe Welcome, that's whom. Whatever. If Granny mentioned his name, I'm sure he was mentioned in some of the contest questions. Joe Welcome.
My goodness, why am I here?
You'd think I'd be used to people coming out of my closet by now. My name's Dory, sir, and I guess I should just say, welcome, Joe.
Yes, miss, I'm so welcome. Now, what can I do for you?
You see, Mr. Welcome, it's like this. I'm going to be in a contest soon, in a couple of weeks, actually. And I'm trying to find out stuff about the town I live in.
Dory, what's your point?
My grandmother said you were an important person here because you made lots of things. And I need to know about that, Mr. Welcome.
Well, Miss Dory, that's true enough. I sure did a lot of work here. But miss, I was a slave, and guess what slaves were called? Working.
I know that, Mr. Welcome. But don't you agree that it's remarkable that the things you did more than 200 years ago here in this town are still here, many of them? That's a testament to your ability. And the fact that your name is remembered means you were an important person.
Well, I guess so. But at the time, I was doing what Mr. Collins, meaning Mr. Josiah Collins, who owned me, I was doing what he told me to do. And I guess because he was always having someone asking for me, I must have done him well.
Mr. Welcome, it says here that you were a talented artisan, a multi-skilled artisan, who was a plasterer and bricklayer, and that you helped build Edenton Academy and helped renovate St. Paul's Episcopal Church.
Well, Miss Story, that was true enough. That was me, sure enough. And as in that book?
Yes, Mr. Welcome, it is. Here it is. Joe Welcome. It tells all about you. Well, a few paragraphs anyway.
Well, Miss Dara, that's nice to know. Does it say anything in there about Mr. Johnson's house there across the creek, Mr. Samuel Johnson? I helped build that grand house too. Does it say that, Miss?
Yes, Mr. Welcome, it does. It's known as Hayes Plantation now, but Mr. Johnston was the one who hired you to build his home. That place is very famous. People really love to go there and see the house and everything.
That was a very grand house, Miss. But I also did work on the Napa plantation over in Terrell County for the Pettigrew family. Does it say that? They did a lot of work on that house for many years. I did that too.
Why, yes, it is mentioned here.
That's nice to know, Miss Dara.
I want to thank you all for helping me today. I really do feel better prepared.
Dory, you must remember, however, that we simply helped you to remember things you knew already.
I knew that, Mrs. Barker. But you really have helped a lot. It's a good thing those questions aren't going to be about famous baseball teams. My room's too small.
I guess our time here is over. Justices, Mr. Welcome, follow me, please.
Wilson, time to go. Wake up, man.
Miss Dara, I hope you do well in that contest. I'm sure you will.
Thank you, Mr. Welcome.
Good night.
My dear Mrs. Roberts, my best wishes and hopes for victory. Be sure to retire early on the eve of the contest. A quick mind requires a good night's slumber, I have found.
I made my own math. I do that.
Words to live by, Wilson. I have no doubt. Mistress Roberts, remember, good preparation seldom results in an excess of reparation.
And what, pray tell, would be the reparation for a contest lost, Iredell? I swear by the beard of Zeus, you are enthralled with the sound of your own voice, even if no one else within earshot is.
My statement was absolutely appropriate for the occasion. Preparation will also be the deciding factor in all pursuits.